The sky turned orange. An acrid smell filled the air. It was the smell of fear. The Los Angeles wildfires of early January 2025 were unlike anything the city had ever seen. They were fast, furious, and unforgiving. The flames, fueled by drought and driven by relentless Santa Ana winds, tore through neighborhoods with a terrible speed. The city of Angels was a city ablaze. The speed and intensity of the fires took everyone by surprise. Residents barely had time to gather their belongings before fleeing for their lives. The flames devoured everything in their path. Homes turned to ash. Businesses were reduced to rubble. The scale of the devastation was almost unimaginable. The numbers told a grim story. The sheer scale of the destruction was almost unimaginable, a testament to the ferocity of the fires that had swept through the area. At least 10 people were confirmed dead, with many more missing. The community was left in shock, grappling with the sudden loss of life and the uncertainty of the fate of their loved ones. A number expected to rise as the smoke cleared. Rescue workers tirelessly combed through the debris, hoping to find survivors amidst the ruins, but often only finding more tragedy. Over 10,000 homes and buildings were destroyed, reducing entire neighborhoods to ashes. The once vibrant communities now stood as ghost towns, silent witnesses to the devastation, leaving a trail of devastation across 45 square miles, an area the size of San Francisco. The scale of the destruction was hard to comprehend, with landmarks and familiar places now unrecognizable. More than 180,000 people were forced to evacuate their homes, fleeing with whatever they could carry. The roads were filled with long lines of cars, a mass exodus of people seeking safety, seeking refuge in shelters or with friends and family. Emergency shelters quickly filled up, with people sleeping on cots in gymnasiums, unsure of when they could return home, or if they even had a home to return to. The fires were not confined to one area. They spread rapidly, fueled by strong winds and dry conditions, creating multiple fronts that overwhelmed firefighting efforts. They raged across the city, consuming everything in their path. From residential homes to commercial buildings, nothing was spared from the relentless advance of the flames, leaving their mark on wealthy enclaves and working-class neighborhoods alike. The fires showed no discrimination, affecting both the affluent and the less fortunate, uniting the city in shared tragedy. The iconic Pacific Palisades, home to celebrities and breathtaking ocean views, was not spared. The luxurious homes with their stunning vistas were reduced to charred remains, was scarred by the massive Palisades fire. Firefighters battled tirelessly, but the fire's intensity left a lasting mark on this picturesque area. The Eaton fire tore through Pasadena, a city known for its historic charm and cultural landmarks. The fire's path left a trail of destruction, altering the landscape forever, leaving behind a landscape of charred trees and smoldering ruins. The once lush greenery was now a stark reminder of the fire's wrath. And in the San Fernando Valley, the Kenneth fire threatened to engulf a school, a place of learning and safety, now at the mercy of the flames, where evacuees had sought shelter. The irony was not lost on those who had fled to the school for safety, only to find themselves once again in the path of danger. The fires were fueled by a deadly combination of environmental factors, creating a perfect storm of destruction. Southern California had been in the grip of a severe drought for years, with rainfall levels far below average. This prolonged drought left vegetation tinder dry and highly flammable, turning the landscape into a vast expanse of kindling. Then came the Santa Ana winds, howling down from the mountains with hurricane-force gusts of up to 90 miles per hour. These winds are notorious for their dry, warm nature, which further desiccates the already parched vegetation. These winds, infamous for their role in fanning wildfires, whipped the flames into a frenzy, creating firestorms that were nearly impossible to control. The relentless winds pushed the flames through canyons and valleys with terrifying speed, consuming everything in their path. The winds were so strong that they grounded firefighting aircraft, rendering aerial firefighting efforts useless. This made it nearly impossible to fight the fires from the air, a critical component in wildfire suppression. Ground crews struggled to keep up with the rapidly advancing flames, battling against the inferno with hoses and hand tools. Often they were forced to retreat and regroup as the fire jumped ahead of them, driven by the relentless winds. The wind carried embers for miles, igniting spot fires and creating new fronts faster than firefighters could contain them. These spot fires would spring up unexpectedly, adding to the chaos and making the battle against the blaze even more daunting. Exhausted firefighters worked around the clock, but the relentless nature of the wind-whipped inferno made their task seem almost Sisyphean. The charred remains of forests and homes stood as a stark reminder of the fire's devastating power. Communities were forced to evacuate, leaving behind their homes and possessions, unsure if they would have anything to return to. The highways were filled with cars as people fled the advancing flames, hoping to find safety. News reporters covered the unfolding disaster, while emergency shelters were set up to accommodate the evacuees. The scale of the disaster was immense, and the response required coordination and resources from multiple agencies. Despite the overwhelming challenges, the community came together to support the firefighters and those affected by the fire. Donations poured in, and volunteers worked tirelessly to provide aid and comfort to those in need. As the sun rose over the smoky landscape, there was a glimmer of hope amidst the destruction. The resilience of the human spirit shone through as people began to rebuild and recover from the wind-whipped inferno. Behind the staggering statistics were stories of unimaginable loss and heartbreak. Families huddled in shelters, their faces etched with worry and despair, wondering if they would have homes to return to. Firefighters, working tirelessly in grueling conditions, risked their lives to save others, knowing they were fighting a losing battle against the relentless flames. The fires did not discriminate. They claimed the homes of the wealthy and the poor, the famous and the unknown. Will Rogers' Western Ranch House, a beloved landmark, was reduced to ashes. Schools, libraries, synagogues, churches, restaurants all lay in ruins, testament to the indiscriminate fury of the flames. Section 5. A perfect storm. While the environmental factors, the drought and the winds, played a significant role in the fire's intensity, human actions also contributed to the scale of the disaster. Years of unchecked development had pushed homes further into the wildland-urban interface, putting them in harm's way. Flammable building materials such as wood and cardboard were widely used, turning homes into tinderboxes. Moreover, despite the known risks, Los Angeles had not taken sufficient preventive measures. Brush clearance was inadequate. Building codes were not stringent enough. And while some residents had taken steps to fireproof their homes, many others remained unprepared for the ferocity of the inferno that swept through their communities. Section 6. When the wind blows. The Santa Ana winds, a natural phenomenon in Southern California, are notorious for their role in exacerbating wildfires. These dry, warm winds originate in the Great Basin and blow westward toward the Pacific Ocean, gaining speed as they are funneled through mountain passes and canyons. As they descend, they compress and heat up, creating ideal conditions for wildfires to ignite and spread rapidly. The winds can carry embers for miles, igniting spot fires far ahead of the main fire front. This makes it extremely difficult for firefighters to contain the blaze as they are constantly battling new ignitions. The Santa Anas also create unpredictable fire behavior, making it challenging to predict the fire's path and warn residents in its path. Section 7. A city on hold. As the fires raged, Los Angeles was a city on hold. Schools were closed, businesses were shuttered, the air was thick with smoke, making it difficult to breathe and creating a hazardous health hazard. The city imposed a curfew in some areas as reports of looting surfaced, adding to the sense of unease and insecurity. The fires also put a strain on essential resources. Water supplies ran low, hampering firefighting efforts. Hospitals were overwhelmed with patients suffering from smoke inhalation and burn injuries. The city's infrastructure, already stretched thin, was pushed to its limits. Section 8. The long road ahead. As the flames subsided and the smoke began to clear, the true extent of the devastation became horrifyingly clear. The economic impact of the fires was estimated to be in the billions, with AccuWeather predicting losses between $135 billion and $150 billion. Rebuilding what was lost would be a monumental task, one that would require a massive coordinated effort from local, state and federal agencies. But the road to recovery would be long and arduous. Thousands of people were homeless, their lives upended by the disaster. The emotional toll on those who lost loved ones, homes and businesses would be immeasurable. And the scars left by the fires on the landscape and in the hearts of Angelenos would take years, if not generations, to heal. Section 9. Lessons Unlearned. The 2025 Los Angeles wildfires were a stark reminder of the devastating power of nature. The fires swept through vast areas, leaving behind a trail of destruction and despair. Entire neighborhoods were reduced to ashes, and the air was thick with smoke for days. The impact on the community was profound, with thousands of residents displaced and countless homes lost. The urgent need for preparedness and mitigation became glaringly obvious. Despite years of warnings from scientists and fire experts, the city had not done enough to address the growing threat of wildfires. The warnings had been clear, yet the response was inadequate. The lack of action was not just a failure of policy, but a failure to protect the community. Development had continued unchecked in fire-prone areas. Building codes remained inadequate, and new constructions often ignored the risks. The allure of scenic views and the demand for housing had led to homes being built dangerously close to forested hills. This unchecked development only exacerbated the problem, creating a tinderbox waiting to ignite. Many residents were woefully unprepared for the reality of a major wildfire. Evacuation plans were either non-existent or poorly communicated. As the flames approached, panic set in, and the lack of preparedness became painfully evident. People were forced to flee with little more than the clothes on their backs, and the emotional toll was immense. As the city began the long process of rebuilding, it was imperative that lessons were learned from this tragedy. The rebuilding process was not just about restoring what was lost, but about creating a safer, more resilient community. Investing in fire-resistant building materials, creating defensible space around homes, and educating the public on fire safety were crucial steps. These measures could significantly reduce the risk of future wildfires and protect lives and property. Implementing stricter building codes in fire-prone areas was essential. These codes needed to be enforced rigorously to ensure that new constructions were built to withstand the threat of wildfires. But perhaps the most important lesson was the need for a collective shift in mindset, a recognition that living in a fire-prone environment required constant vigilance and a commitment to preparedness. Community engagement and education were key. Regular fire drills, community preparedness meetings, and public awareness campaigns could foster a culture of readiness. Only then could Los Angeles hope to avert such a catastrophic event in the future. The path forward was clear: learn from the past, act in the present, and safeguard the future.